Hey everyone, Patrick here in Vancouver. Welcome to Planetarian Daily, episode 45. It's been another week where the boundaries between different areas of medicine feel like they're blurring in really interesting ways. We're seeing cell therapies originally built for cancer now rewriting the rules for autoimmune disease, decades-old biological insights finally turning into druggable targets, and a steady flow of capital into both clever delivery technologies and more traditional devices and drugs. Let's walk through what stood out. The story that really stopped me in my tracks is the first reported case of a single CAR-T infusion driving 3 distinct autoimmune diseases into remission in the same patient. Researchers treated an individual who was simultaneously dealing with severe systemic lupus erythematosus, Sjogren's syndrome, and myasthenia gravis. After one dose of autologous CAR-T cells directed against CD19, all 3 conditions went into deep remission. What's striking is how complete the reset appears to have been. The therapy didn't simply suppress symptoms, it eliminated the rogue B-cell clones that were driving the autoimmunity and, in the process, seemed to wipe out the aberrant immune memory that had kept those diseases active for years. This is a fundamentally different approach from the way we've historically managed overlapping autoimmune syndromes. Instead of layering immunosuppressants or biologics that each target one pathway, the CAR-T therapy appears to go upstream and reset the immune system at its source. Of course, we're talking about a single patient, so we have to be measured. Still, the depth and breadth of the response suggests that properly engineered cell therapies might be able to address the shared underlying B-cell dysfunction that links many autoimmune conditions. I keep thinking about the patients I've known who live with multiple overlapping diagnoses. The complexity of their care is enormous. If this kind of multi-disease remission holds up in larger trials, it could dramatically change how we think about eligibility and sequencing of advanced therapies. Clinicians are already planning longer follow-up to understand how durable these remissions prove to be and whether patients eventually need retreatment. The fact that a modality born in oncology is now showing this kind of power in immunology feels like one of those quiet but profound shifts. The first regulatory approvals for autoimmune CAR-T are starting to look like they're on the horizon, and this case will only accelerate that conversation. While that one remarkable immune reset has everyone talking about cellular medicine, the biotech world is also pouring serious energy into an entirely different, much older molecular target that has suddenly become one of the hottest areas in cardiovascular drug development. The molecule is lipoprotein A, or LPA. It was first identified back in the early 1960s by the Norwegian physician Kåre Berg while he was searching for new blood group antigens. At the time, nobody could have predicted it would become a central focus of cardiometabolic research 60 years later. LPA is almost entirely genetically determined. Unlike LDL cholesterol, it barely budges in response to diet, exercise, weight loss, or even statin therapy. That's been frustrating for both patients and clinicians for decades. Levels above 50 milligrams per deciliter, which according to population data affect roughly 1 in 5 adults worldwide, are associated with a substantially elevated lifetime risk of heart attack, ischemic stroke, and aortic valve stenosis. What makes the particle particularly nasty is its dual payload. It carries oxidized phospholipids and cholesterol, but it also contains apolipoprotein A, a protein that promotes clotting and drives inflammation. In essence, it delivers a double hit to artery walls. It accelerates plaque formation while making the plaques more likely to rupture or trigger thrombosis. For a long time, LPA was treated as an interesting but unmodifiable risk factor. You measured it once, noted it in the chart, and moved on because there wasn't much you could do. That picture is changing rapidly. Several RNA-based and gene-silencing drugs are now in late-stage clinical trials specifically designed to lower LPA production at the genetic level in the liver. For the first time, we may soon have therapies that can actually address this inherited risk directly. The practical takeaway feels straightforward. If you have a family history of early heart disease despite seemingly well-controlled LDL, or if you've had cardiovascular events at a younger age than expected, it's worth asking your doctor for a one-time LPA test. Knowing your number today could become clinically actionable in the next few years. The surge of interest in LPA is a classic case of how a long-understood biological insight can sit on the shelf until the right therapeutic technology finally catches up. And that same pattern of scientific readiness creating commercial opportunity is showing up across several deals this week. One of the clearest examples is California-based medtech company E2, which just closed an $80 million Series C to commercialize its next-generation thrombectomy device. The technology is aimed at patients with life-threatening pulmonary embolisms, where rapid and complete clot removal can be the difference between recovery and serious long-term complications. The fact that investors are writing big checks for improved mechanical solutions in acute cardiovascular care tells you that the unmet need remains high even as pharmacological options expand. It's a reminder that not every advance has to be a molecular one. Sometimes better hardware still moves the needle. Money is clearly flowing into both novel drugs and devices right now, but some of the most intriguing activity is happening in the often overlooked science of delivery, particularly for genetic medicines. Astellas Pharma exercised a $15 million option to license a specially engineered adeno-associated virus capsid developed by Dino Therapeutics. The capsid was designed for improved delivery to skeletal muscle, a tissue that has historically been difficult to target efficiently with gene therapies. This deal builds on a research collaboration that began in 2021. The precision now possible in viral vector engineering is impressive. By tailoring the outer shell of the virus, scientists can improve tropism, reduce off-target distribution to the liver, and potentially lower the overall dose needed. That matters for both safety and cost. Muscle disorders such as certain muscular dystrophies have been waiting for therapies that can actually reach enough of the affected tissue. Deals like this one suggest the field is getting closer to making those therapies practical at scale. Delivery has always been the quiet bottleneck in gene therapy. Watching it gradually loosen feels like genuine progress. Improving how we get potent molecules to the right cells is also a central challenge in the antibody-drug conjugate field, which continues to be one of the most active areas in oncology. Akari Therapeutics announced a partnership with WuXi XDC to develop and manufacture its ADC candidate. The collaboration is structured to accelerate both clinical testing and, crucially, future commercial-scale production. These specialized manufacturing partnerships have become essential because the chemistry of attaching a powerful toxin to an antibody while keeping the whole construct stable is extraordinarily complex. The fact that companies are investing early in manufacturing scale-up signals confidence that their programs will need to move quickly if early data continue to look promising. That momentum is even more visible at GSK. The company's head of oncology R&D recently outlined plans for a whole series of phase 3 studies involving its Hansoh-partnered antibody-drug conjugate. He spoke about the need for scientific courage as the company pushes forward following encouraging data readouts. It's always interesting to hear senior leaders talk about courage in the context of large, late-stage trials. It reminds you how much conviction is required to invest hundreds of millions of dollars and years of patient effort on the strength of earlier signals. GSK's aggressive posture here is part of a broader industry trend. Once an ADC platform shows it can deliver meaningful efficacy with a manageable safety profile, companies are willing to bet big on expanding into multiple tumor types and earlier lines of therapy. Of course, not every program advances smoothly. The FDA has issued a second complete response letter to ElevenLabs for its oncolytic immunotherapy RP1 in advanced melanoma. The initial rejection came last July, and despite the company's efforts to address the agency's concerns, regulators were not satisfied. This is a tough setback for a novel approach that uses a modified herpes virus to both kill tumor cells directly and stimulate a broader immune response. The company now has to decide whether to generate more data, modify the product, or potentially pivot. These moments are painful but not uncommon. They're part of the long, uneven path that new modalities have to walk before they become standard of care. While some developers hit regulatory walls, others are raising substantial capital to keep pushing forward. Chinese KRT company Oracell Therapeutics just closed its final private funding round, bringing in more than $110 million as it prepares for an eventual public listing. The money will support its pipeline of cell therapies focused on solid tumors, particularly carcinomas. It's another sign that investors continue to believe the biggest remaining opportunity in cell therapy lies beyond hematologic cancers. Getting KRT cells to work reliably in solid tumors remains enormously challenging because of the immunosuppressive microenvironment, antigen heterogeneity, and trafficking issues. Companies that can make even incremental progress on those fronts are attracting serious attention. CAR-T is far from the only modality seeing fresh capital. Avalyn Pharma is preparing for an initial public offering to fund phase 3 trials of its inhaled formulations of medicines that are already approved for respiratory diseases. The strategy is straightforward but smart. Take drugs with well-understood safety profiles and deliver them directly to the lungs at higher local concentrations while reducing systemic side effects. For patients with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis or other serious interstitial lung diseases, this could meaningfully improve both efficacy and tolerability. The continued interest in reformulating existing therapies for better organ-specific delivery shows how much room there still is to optimize medicines we've been using for years. Not every partnership is headed toward an IPO. Some are being restructured quietly to better align incentives. Boehringer Ingelheim is transferring marketing rights for the digital therapeutic CT-155, a software-based treatment for schizophrenia that it had been developing with Click Therapeutics. Boehringer is also providing additional funding as part of the revised agreement. This gives Click greater control over commercialization of what could become one of the first prescription digital therapeutics broadly used in psychiatry. The move reflects the growing recognition that software-based interventions require different commercialization skills than traditional pharmaceuticals. It will be fascinating to watch whether this new arrangement helps CT-155 reach more patients faster. While digital therapies are being repositioned, hardware in respiratory care continues to face quality and safety challenges. Philips has issued a voluntary recall of specific software for its Trilogy Evo ventilators. The company is warning clinicians not to use certain non-pneumatic nebulizers in combination with the devices because of the risk that patients may receive an underdose of their inhaled respiratory medication. These kinds of field actions are never ideal, but they highlight the ongoing complexity of integrating multiple technologies at the bedside. When patients are critically ill, even small deviations in drug or oxygen delivery can matter. It's a sober reminder that in medicine, we are always balancing innovation with rigorous attention to real-world performance. Finally, this week, we see Big Pharma continuing to expand its oncology toolkit through creative new mechanisms. Gilead Sciences paid Chimera Therapeutics $45 million upfront to gain rights to a preclinical molecular glue degrader aimed at an undisclosed cancer target. Molecular glues work by forcing two proteins together so that one tags the other for destruction by the cell's natural disposal system. It's a fundamentally different approach from traditional inhibitors, and the space has seen intense activity in several high-profile acquisitions recently. Gilead has been deliberately broadening its late-stage oncology portfolio, and this deal fits that pattern. Targeted protein degradation is still early, but the potential to go after proteins once considered undruggable keeps drawing serious investment. Each new modality we add to the cancer arsenal increases the chance that we can find the right combination for individual patients. That covers the main developments that caught my attention this week. Before we wrap up, I'd suggest keeping an eye on two things in particular. First, watch how those single-patient CAR-T autoimmune results influence the design and patient selection for larger trials. The potential to treat multiple diseases with one intervention is too important to ignore. Second, consider asking for an LPA test at your next physical, especially if heart disease runs in your family. As those silencing therapies move closer to approval, knowing your level could shift from interesting trivia to clinically useful information. Thanks for spending time with me. If you found any of this useful, share the episode with someone who's curious about where medicine is headed. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time on Planetarian Daily. 378, approximately 15.5 minutes at a natural conversational pace. This podcast is curated by Patrick, but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice using ElevenLabs. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.